Hey, wow. Welcome to Two Guys with Guitars. I'm Eugene Edwards over here, and that's Dr. Dylan Caligiuri right over there.
Hello, 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 hello.
Now, first of all, top of the show, I want to thank those of you that joined the club over in Patreon. Thank you. We know our numbers went up there, and we're really, really grateful for that. So
indeed, yes, very much so. Indeed.
And also, I want to thank some of the people that have already come up and said kind things to me in person. In person, Dylan.
In person,
that
wow.
have watched the show.
Wow,
it's very sweet. Someone in Savannah,
Were you
Georgia.
At the fair? Oh, Savannah, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
beautiful city, by the way, Savannah.
Savannah,
extremely well-mannered people.
Wow, yeah.
So I think Charleston, South Carolina, always gets voted like kind of the most well-mannered city in America.
I love Charleston.
Yeah, but I'm feeling Savannah's got to be right up there.
Savannah.
And then I was in North Carolina for a couple of nights. This is kid. Oh gosh, Zach. Something. I feel terrible. Zach, I'm sorry.
Stover Pockets.
Let's go with that.
Okay.
Open for us. He was from young guy. He's out of Nashville now, and we were talking about this a little bit. Where, the '90s.
Yeah.
That was it's a thing. It's a few decades ago.
Oh right, yeah. No, I know that's the part that's really.
There's a nostalgia for the '90s, and I read
the '90s are classic rock now.
Yeah,
by the way, if you guys don't know that.
Well, on classic country.
That's true.
It's
now I know what we were talking about.
Right. So this guy Zach, and I'll have to look at my phone somewhere during the show and get his name. But he kind of plays that style of country, which to me I was like, it just sounds like great country. And then I realized, I guess he's so young that he's doing probably, he wouldn't use the word retro, but
it's the annals. No.
And I'm looking, and he has the Brent Mason model Telecaster.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And Brent Mason was definitely the most heard country guitar player on
Love God.
The number one session player.
Yeah.
In that period in country music. So it makes sense he would have that guitar. And I look at this pedal board, and it was classic Boss 80s era, like the CE3 compressor. Just like everything was like it was the pedals from that time. And he was killing it.
Do you remember when we were kids, if you had that blue Boss compressor and people would turn it on and I would go, yeah, I can hear what it's doing. And then somebody else would say, yeah, it's doing. And I had no idea what it was doing at the time. None whatsoever.
Zach. Oh, well, did you not have it set or it just sounded right?
I think it's a pedal that is very minimalistic in its approach to begin with. And there's a Keeley mod on that pedal. Have you ever seen that before?
No, do tell.
So Keeley mods the Boss is it CE3?
Well, I have the old CE2, but
CE2.
CE2, CE3, that's a line, yeah.
And Keeley does a mod on it that basically it allows it to cross the streams.
I don't know what that means.
It's a reference to Ghostbusters.
I know, but I don't know what that means.
Just basically imagine what could happen.
I don't want to be covered in that.
Okay.
So Zach Top is the kid's name.
Zach Top. That's a good stage name.
Zach. Zach Top. Please look him up.
Yeah.
Beautiful voice. Really, really wonderful guitar player. And I hope he goes far with this whole thing. But I'd read an article, and then like the day that I saw him, or earlier in that day before I saw him, and before I knew he existed, frankly, I read an article that there's like 90s conventions.
90s
Yeah, people
conventions.
they show up with Furby tattoos. They're looking at VHS tapes. Cast members from like 90210 and Full House are there, and there's like 90s themed bars like in Long Island and stuff. And so I think that the 90s it's definitely if it's not making a comeback, it's already come back.
I just want to know, so when are all the tribute bands going to turn into like, a tribute to Pearl Jam, a tribute to...
It's probably happening right now as we speak.
Is it?
Let us know. There's probably a killer Alanis Morissette tribute
to Alanis Morissette. And what would you call that? Like
Atlantis? No. It'd just be like jagged little... Instead of pill,
jagged little Morissette.
Yeah,
exactly, something like that. Yeah, right. To be kitschy and sort of the type of thing it is.
But anyway,
yeah,
go ahead.
I'm looking forward for that. Actually, I don't know
because we know those songs.
We know those songs
so we're
quite
really
well.
Looking forward to like a '90s resurgence.
Yeah,
and I know there weren't '90s, but some of the guys from Hoobastank came and sat in at the Sagebrush Cantina last weekend, and we did their song "Reason."
Reason why? Oh, sorry.
How's it?
The reason why? Yeah. It's cool. It's like
got the nice little
that line's a palindrome.
Then it goes fire. Yeah, really, really.
Is that the guitar line or is that a piano?
No, it's the guitar does that.
The guitar does that.
At first, you hear the piano go.
That's the part I'm thinking of. Yeah.
You just hear that. Yeah. Anyway, we've already that's so. What did you do guitar wise before we get into our curriculum today, or not our curriculum, our segments? What happened to you? Did you have any gigs?
Yeah.
What'd you play?
I played quite a few gigs. So
gospel
I played
gig?
a lot of gospel music. Yeah. So basically, like a lot of the kind of gospel stuff that we're playing would be. And it's always in like horn keys.
I noticed the D flat.
Yeah, and so and so people are always like, why are we in D flat? But none of the keyboard nobody else is mad we're in D flat, because if you play keyboard or play piano, the black keys are really easy to play. Believe it or not, it's the white keys. Like C is the hardest key pretty much to play on piano because that's the widest stretch. But everybody learns C first.
Yeah.
But it's actually like stretch wise, it's the worst key. And so like the easiest keys are like C sharp. Yeah, F flat.
This is why a lot of Chuck Berry songs, Johnny B. Good's in B flat, because Johnny Johnson, his piano player, Chuck was lucky to get Johnny Johnson.
Yeah,
Johnny was a little older,
right?
Great boogie woogie piano player, and so if you listen to a lot of that early Chuck Berry stuff, there's actually a lot of piano going on, especially during the verses. So he'd do these songs in piano keys, essentially. Right. So Johnny B. Good's in B flat, and things are like in G flat. It seems odd. Now, of course, Chuck didn't play with any open strings, right? All the Chuck Berry stuff is fretted notes, so it didn't matter to Chuck really.
Right.
But it's funny to think of music this way. Now, in fact, for those who don't know, Dylan, can you explain to people? I mean, I know, but for the people out there, what is it?
Yes. Indubitably. Go ahead.
Horn keys. What are we talking about? Why do we call it like these
horn keys? Horn keys. Good. Very good. So a horn key, there's basically the fingerings on various horned instruments. So let's say you're talking about French horn, saxophones, trumpets, different instruments like this. They don't they handle flat keys the best. So F, B flat, E flat, A flat. So when you're seeing a lot of music that's written for concert band or that's written for bands that have horns in them or traditionally even had horns in them, you'll see horn keys, and that's why everybody says horn keys all the time. So now you know. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. What do you think? That's pretty good, right?
I think it was pretty good. So now we're going to talk about a few things here today, and one of these is a little bit of stuff that happened in guitar news.
Yeah, this is big. So it's really it has to be discussed.
Okay, so Dylan says it's big, and everyone says it's big.
It's
in guitar world. I'm not going to be stubbornly naive. I guess I just really I'm going to ask. I'm going to pretend like I don't know what's going on. Okay.
As opposed to a normal one where he knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I'm going to... Yeah.
It's the amp company that brought you, let's see. This Guyz amp. It brought you, let's see, who else's amp did it bring you? It brought you, that's right, Jimi Hendrix's amps. It brought you... And yeah, so it's the Marshall amp company, right? Like probably the most iconic company,
just pure guitar amplifiers.
Right.
And you know, Marshall started the history. It's obviously they were made in England, and Fender amps were not sold in England yet. So, but some players were bringing mostly Fender Twins over to England, and they'd have to do the conversion because of the currents and stuff.
Yep.
And it was a bit of a hassle. So then this guy, Jim Marshall, started making, and I think the first of the Fender amps he emulated, I think, was the 59 Bassman. He just kind of tried to remake that. And so
that's why it has the 4 inputs on it, huh?
For instance. Yeah. So, and then of course things got bigger and bigger. One of the classic, before we got to the stacks, was what was known as the Blues Breaker, which is really a 212 50-watt combo.
Right.
So it was really kind of emulating somewhat of a twin, but classically known as the Blues Breaker because Eric Clapton used it on the John Mayall and the Blues Breakers album in 1966. And
oh, really?
Electric guitar had not quite it was the first time the electric guitar really sounded like that on a record.
Wow.
Unless you were digging into Chicago blues, but there's a lot of legend about how loud he just pins that amp, the volume and everything.
Well, and we should mention, so Fender amps use a type of tube that's called 5881. There's a lot of different names for it, but basically it's a very common tube at the time, and it's become much less common now, of course. But the difference in sound was largely because Marshall amps used EL-84s,
right.
34s, excuse me, EL-34s, which weren't Vox. Vox wasn't around yet, but they weren't Vox tubes, which are much smaller, EL-84, and they weren't the Marshall kind of softer 22-watt tube. So the tubes that are in a Marshall amp have literally more watt outputage and higher like gain plate voltage.
Guys like Pete Townsend were pushing.
They were pushing it.
Like let's say, hey, we need it louder and louder.
How do we lose our hearing as soon as possible?
Clapton was playing like the first thing we hear on the Blues Breakers record, I believe, is "All Your Lovin'." It's a. And when he stays on these notes, and you hear the amp starting to feed back and have sympathetic overtones, and it's just really, really thrilling to hear. So the Marshall, and so the legend of Marshall amps builds quickly, and of course, by the time we see, rock and roll gets to much bigger stages, the Who, Jimi Hendrix, we see festivals like Woodstock and Monterey, and bands needed louder amps on stage because they're filling these kind of outdoor arena situations. Right. So Marshall kept up with the stack and all this. So y'all know what Marshall amps is.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen it a million times.
And so what happened to them?
Well,
why are they in the news, Dylan?
I don't know if this is the only time Marshall's been sold, to be honest with you. Maybe they've been sold before, but they were acquired by a Swedish company that was originally making their Bluetooth speakers.
Sound Industries. Sound Industries. And it kind of sounds made up. It sounds like in an action movie. Like you go up to the building where you think some nefarious things are going on. No offense, Sound. But at some point, it's just like, Sound Industries. It sounds like a bad screenwriter.
Well, it sounds like something Orwellian. I mean, it doesn't sound like the 20th century. Let's put it that way.
No. It sounds like the 21st.
It sounds like something much later than that.
So they currently produce the Marshall headphones and speakers under a license from Marshall.
Yeah.
But now, according to Sound CEO Jeremy D. Maillard, the two firms will now sit under a new privately owned umbrella company, the Marshall Group, with the Marshall family owning a 24% stake in the new company. So understand, it's called the Marshall Group, but the Marshall family owns a minority.
24% of it,
24%. So they will not be calling the shots, it doesn't look like. Now, I'm going to start reading a little bit from this article here, and then you're going to explain to me what some of this double speak is.
Do you have a monocle that I can use? Does anybody have a monocle? Daniel, do we have any questions from the viewers so far?
No questions in particular yet. They would like to know what you're drinking, Dylan.
See? Because it looks weird.
Can you go to camera 2, actually, please?
Okay, fine.
So we're working on camera 2, you guys. And so far, we've been able to isolate it. So I am drinking radiator fluid.
We need a director.
And
and I'm having just a latte, like a nice latte.
It's diet radiator, though.
But it is so funny because you're into like jumping into like a bucket of ice.
Oh yeah,
and all this weird health stuff.
Ice baths,
but you drink that.
Superman had kryptonite.
And that looks like
Aquaman had, yes, exactly. And so I needed to have something. If you can go back to one.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyways, I anticipated judgment So bring it on. Come on. Come on.
You're the one that made the Ghostbusters reference. Now I know why. Look at this. I don't want to touch it. So I'm going to read a little bit of this news report here to you. And now the value of the deal has not been revealed.
Sure.
It's reporting. It includes all of Marshall's subsidiary brands. It has a record label. I didn't know. And Natal drums. And that there are no plans to close or shift production away from Marshall's existing factories in the UK and Vietnam. Here's what De Maillard had to say. We've already been working in close collaboration for the past 12 years. We haven't done a single product from Sound that hasn't been approved by the acoustic engineer at Marshall Amps. It's a complete continuation of what we do, except now we're one and the same. Is that true? Is that ever true?
Yeah.
In business?
I mean, well, so, you know, we come from this like boutique amp period, right? Where basically hand-built amps, like hand-wired, point-to-point wiring. Yes, exactly. Okay. That's what Marshall and even the Fender amps, all amps actually originally prior to circuit boards, right? And then even when circuit boards came out, they weren't introduced into amps quickly because you're pushing a lot of wattage through. And, you know, as you guys out there may know, like a tube amp has a dynamic performance unto itself. Yeah, man. So it actually plays quieter when you play quieter, and it plays louder when you play louder.
It's the best.
It's sort of responsive based upon your playing. So, all the amp companies have had to change a lot over the period of time to just remain relevant and to remain sort of something that could be purchased by more and more people. And there's more and more people that play guitar than ever. That's for sure.
So it's a matter of in order to keep up the amount of production that they need to,
right?
They kind of had to go towards
mass-produced parts,
and
mass-produced processes, like, you know, assembly line type of process.
So much like I guess anything that's made on an assembly line or stamped out by a machine or computer is going to cost less because they can make more of them, as opposed to something that's made by hand.
Yes, okay. Correct. Yeah, and so he's immediately trying to extinguish the fear, because what are all the purists going to say right away? They're going to say, you're a digital Bluetooth speaker company.
So now my Marshalls are going to sound
my Marshall's going to sound, my daughter's, whatever speaker that she has in her room.
Right.
And basically, that's just is what they hear. And so he's attempting to quell that out of the gate.
Okay. No, there's a reason empirically why he would want to do that, because as we know, in the late 60s, CBS bought out Fender. And that's when they went to, well, technically better electronics, but maybe not better sounding amps. And so people in the vintage market looking for pre-CBS guitars and Fender guitars and amps. Now, so I think that's just part of guitar lore.
Right.
And I think maybe you're right. I think he's probably speaking to that.
One thing's for sure, during the CBS buyout, the guitars got heavier. So the wood selection got less. And there's so many issues that have to do with wood selection. But yes, so that's what he's talking about.
Okay, so now Terry Marshall, son of the firm's founder, Jim,
Terry,
has also issued a statement. Hey, fun fact, guys. Jim and Terry Marshall's initials determine the model name of Marshall's iconic JTM 45 amp.
That's what JTM means.
Jim and Terry Marshall.
Jim and Terry Marshall.
And that's the amp that pretty much defined music. That's a lot of the
Absolutely it did.
Yeah, so little trivia there for you.
Wow.
So Terry has to say, since my father and I created the original Marshall amp back in 1962, we have always looked for ways to deliver the pioneering Marshall sound to music lovers of all backgrounds and music tastes across the world. I'm confident that the Marshall Group will elevate this mission and spur the love for the Marshall brand. So why does he speak like this? Elevate this mission, spur the love.
Yeah,
I never understand why people speak like this.
So I know that there's been a lot of criticism of late about Marshall's quality control.
Oh, okay.
And so I think, for one thing, this just becomes an issue of like, what do you do as a company, as somebody who owns a company, or as people who own a company for generations? It's like they may not want to own it forever, and they may not want to deal with that forever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's this place I used to play in Echo Park called Taix, Taix. Old, it was kind of a Basque French restaurant,
right,
on Sunset, and it's family owned for generations and generations. And I hear recently that they're selling the real estate. I can only imagine what the family's going to get just for that location.
Sure,
it'd be crazy.
Yeah,
and there are people like, oh, come on, they're lamenting it. And to me, I'm thinking, well, but it's probably his grandkids or great grandkids by now, and like, who said they want to run a restaurant?
That's a huge. It's a huge thing.
We're not entitled to them doing what the
exactly, and that's sort of what the demand is. It also assumes that all change is bad, which is like, can and cannot be true. I mean, so it's basically just a lot of people, instantly lose confidence when they hear about a.
But the good news is we can go into stores and try out Marshall amps.
Yeah,
our ears and hands will tell us. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the greatest things about Marshall amps was this. So Marshall amps, basically, as you guys know, this guy. He developed the Brown sound, right, which has been a tool for comedy for a very long time, but also has to do with the amount of distortion that he was able to create by jumping two of the channels on one of the early Marshall amps. Okay, and this actually, fed into Marshall adapting the way they made the amps, and that's where the JTM actually originated. So, what that did. One of the unique characteristics about Marshalls is as you turn down your guitar with distortion on the amp, it turns the distortion down, but maintains a lot of the character and body of the guitar.
Yeah. So
this is one of the things, it's just one example of what that type of level of detail to craftsmanship did. And I think there's people that understand those nuances of these types of amps are absolutely in fear that those types of things wouldn't be carried forward.
Dylan, I can't help but feel that the Marshall group, the people there, they know that that's why people go to Marshall. So why would they eviscerate that?
Yeah, I mean,
or is that the challenge? How do we stay like a relevant company but still create that thing?
Well, for one thing, they're a parent company, and so parent companies always have other children that they're looking after. And generally, parent companies are also looking to make profit off of their investments, and business owners tend to be looking to make product and profit.
Okay.
And so there's smoke, and there could be fire.
So de Maillard, I'm sorry to mispronounce your name.
I wonder if he's related to the Mullard tube people.
That would be great,
right?
He also reveals in his interview that some 90% of Zound's sales currently come from Marshall branded products. Yeah. And says so this is the favorite child.
Yeah.
And he says he wants to focus on ensuring the two sides of the newly formed Marshall group, 24%, will work together, quote, more holistically. Again, what's with the way these people speak?
That has something to do with Reiki and like healing stones.
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly.
Crystals.
So they're going to make sound baths now, Marshall sound baths. Exactly what that means for the guitarists remains to be seen, but the storied amp maker has made very few new product announcements in recent years, with a notable exception for its vintage reissue pedals, which were leaked and subjected to a somewhat confusing debut. The merger may also have advantages, enabling the often heritage-focused Marshall to compete with more tech-savvy home practice brands such as Positive Grid. For example, producing more equipment that caters to both guitar amp and home audio purposes. And we see this in other guitar companies, right? Trying to like get into that home audio, because more people are recording at home.
Yeah, so Positive Grid,
we're doing the show from home.
There's a lot of people that are followers of us that use Positive Grid stuff and love it, and then there's sort of love-hate relationship with that. There's a lot of purists out there that are right out of the gate, they start playing and they are sort of aficionado about, wanting it to be a tube amp. Positive Grid, I believe, started out as a plug-in company, actually.
That makes sense.
And then eventually went to building an amp. And there was some controversy because it took a really long time for the amps to get delivered, their flagship originally. And then, and they've been, quite popular since then. They're very small. They're very like Hello Kitty sized.
Okay.
And they have a bunch of different tones in them. I mean, that's probably where a lot of this fear is based, right? Is that we're talking about a digital amp company that went from digital to digital amp, and digital amp means I/O. That means that somewhere there's a crossover into analog. Somewhere the information that's digital, the ones and the zeros, are being divided up and put into analog. So it's a reasonable fear that they would start cutting corners. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will, but I mean,
let's hope they don't.
Let's look at the announcement of the acquisition, and it's like, hey guys, isn't this amazing? It's instant type of like, damage control. You know what I mean? So that should give you a little bit of an idea that, people aren't wild about it.
But on the other hand, if it helps Marshall stay alive, now we're back to the thing where we don't.
Do we lose Marshall entirely? Somebody wanted to take it over, right? Yeah.
So that's a lot of So if something like this happens in Guitar News World, we're gonna talk about it and kind of just kick around some ideas and see if you guys have any ideas about it. Daniel, do we have any questions before we move on to the next segment?
Someone wants to know, what does the JVM stand for in the Marshall JVM 401?
It was the junior varsity model.
Junior varsity. I have the answer for you guys.
Wow. So Daniel has the World Wide Web.
I do.
At his disposal.
Yes.
Go ahead, Daniel.
It is actually named after Jim Marshall and his daughter Victoria.
These are adorable.
They are adorable.
These are adorable names.
Being British, Victoria, a great, Queen Victoria. I love it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
And the tea and everything else. I just everything about it.
So much family represented on
Zound. Is it Zound?
It is now.
Don't screw this up, Zound.
Oh, there's going to be a Jay-Z model, Marshall. That'd be pretty bad. I'd check that out.
I would definitely.
All right.
Do that.
So now, I want you to tell people how to make ethereal sounds. Ambient. Now, not ambient music. Ambient music is like whole tone.
We'll do that later on.
We can do that. But
and we could talk about that too. But I mean, ethereal sounds. We're talking about special techniques.
Okay. So sometimes, obviously we know that we can make a sound. We can play a string, and then we can fret that string. We can even do more than one. But you're not talking about playing straight up notes.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about things that that you can take on tour with a circus. I'm talking about things that will like charm a snake out of a basket.
Like sawdust in the veins.
Exactly, yeah.
Showbiz.
Yeah. So like it's basically on every instrument there's a set of what's called special techniques. So even with the human voice, there's something called multiphonics. David Lee Roth
can do that.
Who could forget about him?
Yeah, you hear like two notes essentially.
And you basically all you do is you wear spandex for like 20 years.
Done.
And you're done. No, but so ethereal noises have to do with special techniques on the guitar. Mm-hmm. So a famous one that everybody's probably heard before is this guy. So if you were playing like a... And then you went over there and did something. I don't know why you would do. I mostly hear this as the theme to Psycho.
It has a bit of a Bernard Herrmann thing, yeah.
But it really works at the end of a section, like. And then you throw one of those guys on the end.
Just a kooky little.
That type
of
a
little creepiness.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. So that's a big one. I would, obviously the whammy bar is a pretty huge one, and when people are using the whammy bar, sometimes they're being judicious with it. So they're doing the.
Well, that's how my thing that I'll tell students, the way I manage it is that it's like I'm shaking, that the oldest lady at your church, I'm shaking her hand.
Right.
Like that.
What do you want to break her?
No, I don't want to break
Nobody's
her.
going to like you afterwards.
She
makes the lutefisk.
Look, she's into me for 50 large. She bet on South Carolina.
Yeah.
She went with the favorite and she lost big.
And
So,
yeah.
I am very good, but I come from a school of using it to emulate pedal steel sounds, like the bar, like you're just kind of. So I never really got into the more ethereal stuff.
Well, here, give me this. Give me the.
Wait, what's your
going? D. There we go. So that whole sound where it's like it sounds like a car starting up. That whole thing. That type of a technique on whammy bar is just that's getting really kind of unearthly with the whammy bar, right?
This is not about a note that we would notate in tab or
no.
In manuscript.
And notating it, by the way, is a pretty difficult thing to do.
I would imagine so.
It's like break the guitar and then put it back together. No, it's you really do have to work on getting your guitar to stay in tune to do that.
Didn't he make a horse sound, Eddie?
Yeah, there was like that type of a thing. He does it better.
So at this point, one would have to hear a sound, a car horn, a horse neighing, a car engine, starting up, and trying to figure out in sort of sheer sound, what am I hearing? Thinking frequency, pitch,
exactly.
And it's not a matter of that's a F above middle C. Right. I mean, we're really thinking about does it swell in volume? Is it having an attack?
It's character both on the X, Y, and Z axis, meaning so it's volume, its breadth of EQ, and then also like its intensity in the middle direction.
Sure.
So it's really starting to hear things and try to analyze them as you hear it. It's active listening, right?
Active listening.
So here's another example. So go back to the same progression. 2, 3, 4. C.
Yep.
So that whole pattern right there, that's called chirping. Chirping. So you could do it on... It literally just sounds like I'm chirping the note.
What the heck?
Right. All the golden retrievers in the neighborhood are going to show up now.
And then, but one of the first, again, if you're like an absolute beginner,
right?
I say pick slide.
Oh, pick slide's great. Absolutely.
You just take that pick, and it's going to be on your lower strings because with the winding,
right?
And the pick is just going to scrape and catch all the little gaps in between the metal wind. Now, if you really want to bother your parents or your younger or one of your siblings in the house, do it as slow as you can. This sounds like one of the girls on The Bachelor with that. Let me do that croaky voice. Oh, this just drives. Also, demons hate this.
Yeah, this is a way to exercise. Now, so same type of a situation there. It's very easy too. This is something you can do to create like ambience, like a almost rain pitter-patting, right? So especially if you have a lot of reverb on, which we don't, but imagine there is.
Okay. Now, what you're doing is you're actually pushing the high E string onto the
that's right.
The pickup.
Well, I'm actually it's creating the partial or the harmonic that's there
understand.
By touching it.
Okay.
So that's another good one too for you guys. These are all great for bar mitzvahs, for bris, anything.
I'll tell you what. Or if any of you into like film scoring, or you want to just add some music to a video, you're gonna make a TikTok video and you want to put some music onto it, but just be imaginative with the instrument you have in your hand.
And then so there's some great ones right there, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we've done is whammy bar and pick stuff so far.
Right.
So we haven't done anything too crazy yet. There is an old school technique where if you don't have a whammy bar, people would play the note and then they would use the neck to actually pull the whammy bar in or out so that they would grab it here. Now, this is an interesting thing because you would think it's going to break your guitar, and I imagine maybe you could eventually break your guitar with it, but it's really, I don't think so, actually. I think
I used to do this a lot.
Yeah.
I would be Telecasters.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it just kind of give some sort of effect. I would do it all the time.
Show them.
So I'll just say I'm ending something where...
So did you hear that? So imagine you left your whammy bar at home, but there's a deal. You either have to pay the ransom or bend a note without having a whammy bar. And so this is it. You want to get out of jail or not?
Right.
And that's a way to do it.
But what am I doing? Is it the truss rod?
Well, no, you're just literally bending the neck out of position and back in.
Rad.
Yeah. So it's like foundational, man. You know what I mean?
Okay. So yeah, I guess that is one. Now, isn't there one? Now the covers on this. You can hit the springs.
Yeah.
If you have springs from your whammy bar there back here, just take the cover off and
you can pling them.
You can because those are pretty close to the magnetic pickups actually.
So I want to show them another one that's
you want a lot of gain for, in your tone
for any of these. A
lot of these to work.
And reverb would help a lot too because it'll give it some artifacts. So give me this with low distortion. Give me a. Keep going. I stop what you're doing because I'm about to. Anyway, so you get the idea. It's basically, this is the effect of scratching on a record, right? On a turntable. So I was doing the Humpty Dance there, in case you guys missed that.
Because the 90s are back.
Because the 90s are back. And so I do it right over the pickup with in the bridge position. And then you got to work on your...
No, but is the pick touching the string?
No pick involved. Just fingers. See if you can get it. Well, it's not bad for a beginner, but I mean, it's... Oh, yeah. It's pretty good. So these are all things, again, they're very important things.
have fun with them. Have fun with them. And then, by the way, so we're not talking about like getting effects pedals that do, because obviously Tom Morello does make his guitar sound like a full-on DJ set with the pitch bend, but there's pedals involved there mixed with some of these special techniques.
Right, and so that's the other thing I did want to talk about was a few of the scales that are really exotic sounding.
This is
ethereal
great.
sounding.
This is great.
Yeah.
I'd love to find out about this.
So whole tone scale, as you mentioned. Yeah. So what is the whole tone scale?
It's whenever I go into a dream sequence.
Yes, exactly. So it's basically all whole tones. So if you have,
I remember it like it was yesterday. I had just had some Diet Mountain Dew, and nothing was the same after that. My insides were glowing, and sorry.
So the idea is that it's all whole tones. So if you can play an open string and go up whole tones or two frets away from each one of those, you'll end up with a whole tone scale. There's only 2 whole tone scales from any note on the guitar, really. So you have the one that you're in position on.
True. Yeah.
Or you can start on this note. And that's it. There are only those 2 whole tone scales because that's every note on the guitar.
Mathematically, that
right. It's symmetrical. Right. So that's a really cool scale to check out, and I'll show you guys a usage. So give me a low distortion like a. Here we go. Good. Okay. Take it, and he's like a. So it's really a way to add a ton of tension, right? And it's not something you would want to do a ton of. But it's,
again, be judicious here.
You would be judicious, yes.
That's right. Because you really want this. It's a very special spice that you're throwing into something.
And there's probably places where you can get a ticket.
No, do me a favor. Can you use it in a way that's a little slower? Because
sure.
I mean, use it as a kind of a fast run. It was for tension, but can I do the same changes?
Absolutely.
Same vibe. Okay, let's just hear it. Okay.
And you can just hear it instantly goes to like non-tonal land.
It sounds very outside
into atonal land. Yeah, pretty much.
But when let's say we were over that A sharp 5.
Yes.
What note did you start on? Pardon the preposition.
So I'm starting on A itself.
Start on the root.
Or you can actually start a half step above A because it's a dominant.
Because you're going to end up on 4 and 5. So it doesn't matter what note you're on.
It doesn't matter what note you start on. Sorry, guys. There are notes that'll sound better starting on from other ones. Yeah. I would start on the major 7th over a dominant chord.
Because you have major 7 in the flat 2 right off the bat.
Yeah. So that's a big one there, right? That's a big
great one.
Daniel, is that one of your favorites?
That is one of my favorites, yeah.
What's another one of your faves?
Scale-wise?
Sure. Yeah, sure, whatever.
I mean, you could also talk about the diminished scale.
What does ChatGPT mention about this? Would you be able to check that for us? Ethereal guitar sounds. And while we're doing that, I'll do the diminished scale. Okay, so there's 2 awesome diminished scales for this, you guys. So the first one, how about you give me something like a... So it sounds literally like you're opening a portal to hell. And you know that like Rubik's Cube that Hellraiser has?
You know that portal to hell?
Yeah, that it's the Rubik's Cube that makes Hellraiser come out. And this is why. And so you're opening that thing.
I want that in my house.
You figured that thing out. But so that's actually the diminished arpeggio. So the diminished scale, you guys, is a symmetrical scale, which means
first of all,
it's
start from a note.
Yep.
You just go a minor third up. Now, after you do that 4 times, you're going to start all over.
You start it over again.
So starting from your open A.
That's right.
I'm just going to use the same single string.
Yeah, go for it.
Then I go up a minor third. So 3 frets.
Or a step and a half, basically.
Or a step and a half. Then I do it again.
And you're back. And that's why they call it symmetrical, because it's... there you go, because he ends up there. Now, but that's the diminished arpeggio. The diminished scale is actually half step, whole step, or... whole step, half step. I mean, so it doesn't really matter which one you do. It's the same thing, right?
It'll still work out.
So in A, if you play this guy again. So just the scale itself sounds like this. And when I was first learning this scale, I think... I don't know how old I was, but I probably just learned this last 4 strings of it, which would be like 5, 7, 8, 5, 6, 8, 5, 7, 8, 5, 6, 8. So just... And the way you guys can start applying this like right away into your playing. So if you give me a 12-bar blues...
Give me, what key would you like that?
How about in the key of A?
And, I know that one.
And just going from all I'm going to do is use it when we go to the 4 chord. So I'll show you guys what I'm talking about.
I was hoping you'd do this. I love this. Is a great movie.
2, ready, go. Now here it is again. So literally just the riff like is enough to really do it. One more time. 2.
It's all those ethereal sounds you're doing.
Sorry about this. There we go. 2, 3, 4. And that lands on the 7th of the 4 chord right there.
That's perfect.
And that's the sound. That's the tone.
Now you're on the blues note.
Exactly.
Of the 4 chord, yeah.
So you know, a shuffle probably wouldn't be necessarily the style that would be used in. If it was a shuffle, it might be even less than that. So it might just be like a like just very little. It's more like kind of like a modern sort of Robin 40 or Larry Carlton style.
There's a band called one of my favorite pop bands, Squeeze. Had the song called which one?
Black Coffee.
And there's not in Black Coffee, but in the song called "Is That Love." Oh. Great guitar solo, and it's pretty much an A minor. But when the progression plays an F,
right?
I believe he uses a diminished run.
Yeah.
To get it, so the solo is. Then right here.
There you go. Yeah. See how it's just a piece? And that's the arpeggio.
That's over an F major chord, and then it goes to a C. I think we lost the feed. Did we lose the feed?
I'm watching.
Are we still on? We lost lights
haven't caught
for sure.
up yet.
No, we just lost lights. Sorry about that, you guys. There was a...
we had a canine issue.
I
don't know.
We're good.
We're fine. Okay, so that's how you can. So there's also so that's like in a modern kind of a rock setting. You know, the player kind of uses the diminished run to get from, believe it or not, from F major to C. But he starts on an F natural note,
right?
But instead of playing like the scale tones or even the chord tones of an F major, he just runs up these minor thirds. He essentially spells out this diminished scale or diminished run.
That's the diminished arpeggio.
Diminished arpeggio.
Yeah, do do da do da do.
And then he somehow just lands safely on C major.
That's it.
It was when I was a kid, I was really thrilled to figure this one out. I thought I felt very, very, very adult.
It's like a really cool sound. That's why, because it's just like it's such a unique sound. It's not something you've heard very much.
Chords. In fact, I don't know, Daniel. Can you see if this light, how we can get this light back?
Yeah, absolutely.
And also diminished chords. We hear. Well, we don't hear them as much in tunes, but we used to hear them a lot. And George Harrison would use them a lot. So, like in "My Sweet Lord," which is for the most just kind of this 2 minor 5. Then it goes to the 1 chord, to 6 minor, everything's fine, but then right here.
Ah, yes.
Which is great. So he's just using it to get to from the 1 chord to the 2 minor, but he finds this feels like this half step motion to get up there. And of course, great. My sweet Lord, he's trying to speak to the Lord. There's this ascent, this reaching.
And that's what they do. They sound like transition to the max, basically.
Well, so another classic one is, blame it all on the roof.
I was going to say that too.
Showed up in boots.
Now watch. There. So go to the solo to that. Do you know the solo?
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. So notice there's no acknowledgement of the diminished chord whatsoever. Exactly. So I don't know what that was, but it was like, really funny. My friends they're in low places, but not quite that low. See?
Okay. Makes sense. Gosh, we're nearing the end of the show. Do we have any questions? Rex is okay, by the way, guys.
Yeah, Rex. Yeah. Rex. God, sweet mother of God. We're gonna have an OSHA disaster here. Is what we're gonna have.
Rory had a great suggestion about using the volume control to get kind of a violin swell.
Okay,
sound.
so that's a great one. And by the way, Stratocasters are particularly good for that. It's so funny because I have some students that, and maybe we talked about this last week. I don't know, they get really annoyed. I think Marilee, one of our watch, she doesn't like she keeps hitting that volume knob, but of course Leo moved this closer.
Yep.
On purpose. From the Telecaster to put it here,
so
because
you could do
guys were doing more or less like because steel players were using volume pedals to create this weepy sound, but now you could
absolutely
but what Rory's talking about is using it as a violin, because we're recreating, because with a bow we can create these volume swells.
Mm-hmm.
We can't. What's this wee stuff, Kimosabe?
The royal wee.
I can't play violin, but it's the royal wee. But yeah, we can. Actually, you may.
That's it.
Or a cello.
Let's say it was this type of a tune here. And the night. Oh, sorry. That's just junior high coming out. And yeah.
So
they're in there.
So you're right. Volume swells. That's a special.
It's
technique.
ethereal. So we deliberately avoided using Eddie pedals for this, you guys. But
right.
Bet your buttons that the pedals are coming. It's just this is the prequel.
That's right.
Is that right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Prequel.
A prelude.
Indubitably, to more of that.
Dig. So
any other questions?
Any other questions, Daniel?
Scott asks, any tips for the Daniel Ash or Bauhaus sound?
Well, isn't that that's a pedal, I believe.
Yeah.
So we're talking about I believe a harmonizer pedal.
So let me think here. So that's going to end up being, I think it's a fifth.
Yeah.
That's used all the time on it. So if you're going to use harmonizer pedals here, so talk amongst yourselves. Go ahead.
Okay, so dig this, man.
All right, so there's two guys. They're at a bar.
Oh, I thought you were gonna. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah. So this bear goes into a bar, and he asks for a beer, and the bartender says, I don't really feel comfortable. You consume a lot, and then you never have your wallet, and it's a problem. I mean, and then you knock a lot of things over, and a lot of people get really frightened because you're a bear, you see. And so the bear is now offended. So, are you saying I have a problem? The bartender says, it's not for me to say that, but here's my phone number, and if you're ready to kind of talk about this, then maybe maybe I can put you in contact with somebody. So he says, but you're not serving me because I'm a bear, right? So it's not because you're a bear. And then he says, you're gonna make faces because I can't bear it, and stuff like that, And it says, I'm not gonna do that. I think maybe you could use some help. That's all. And the bear says, look, I've been ostracized enough. I've already been through it, and in terms of like taking your phone number and calling someone. And the bartender says, what? And the bear says, nothing. I just have a big pause. You ready?
That was horrible. No, it was very good. It's very good. I'll have one next week for you guys. So go to E major for me. 2, 3, 4.
You said E major.
I think maybe we're out of tune. 2, 3, 4.
Oh, wait, let's hear this without me playing so we can actually hear the... Hold on, stop it. Play one note for me, please. No, play one note.
Oh, you only want one note?
That's what I said, play one note. I'm hearing more than one note. Knock it off, Dylan. I said play one note.
Oh, I can't.
Why not, Dylan?
Because it's a pitch tool, basically. It's adding a fifth away from every note I'm playing.
So every note you play, there's an automatic power chord.
That's right. Well, this is a fifth away, and it's tuned to the key of E, and so it's diatonic to that key.
Oh, dear.
So there's two types of pitch shifters.
Cool.
There's chromatic pitch shifters and diatonic pitch shifters.
So this is why E major.
E major will work. And so it will always stay a fifth away within the scale of E major, and so that means at one point there's going to be a flat 5. So from B. And from everything else, it's going to be a fifth away.
Sounds like cheating, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So, but I mean, that's the tool that you're talking about, Scott. It's definitely a way to sound like, dueling guitar leads, like The Boys Are Back in Town or something like that. In a different key, I think it.
No,
it's the basically same. Well, I mean, I'm in the wrong key.
Wait,
but it's the same concept as that. So that's a good question. It's a good one. Very good one. Any other ones there, Daniel?
Any other questions?
Yes.
Well, Mara Lee has a subject request. Maybe a good one for another session or Patreon.
I love it.
Okay.
Modes. What are they, and what are common chord
Mara
progressions?
Lee, you should buy a scratcher today. This is your scratcher day.
Let's do this
That's
next
all I'm
week.
gonna say.
This will be a segment next week.
Well, and we have some guests coming up, you guys. We have some familiar faces that are coming on. What we're doing is we're working on deciding how to get the stage a little bit bigger so that we can bring them on, basically. And then, of course, we need to put Rex in a harness.
Well, or just a playpen.
Yes, a playpen for Rex, yeah.
Yeah, he'd be fine. Come on, Rex. He just saw there was a cable issue. He was trying to fix it. He didn't mean anything.
I think it was all, yeah. So, but no, we appreciate you guys tuning in as always. You guys are the fantastic audience. And thanks to Daniel, everybody. Hey!
Hell yeah.
And yeah, so I think we've got requests to do a blues episode.
Okay.
And I think specifically blues soloing.
That'd be great for one of the guests that we have coming up.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we'll definitely do blues soloing, and there's so much. I mean, there's a lot involved there, but we'd love to get you up and running with blues soloing, and also some things to think about. That I think talking about blues soloing, it's not just thinking about, well, should I use the major pentatonic or minor pentatonic? There's other things to think about, like call and response and breathing in between phrases. There's just little things that we can do that don't have to do with the fretboard or technically, that really, really helps our approach and our thinking about how to play the blues.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to do with the blues.
Yeah, it's a very simple form in which we can, obviously,
there's a lot of human in the blues.
A lot of human form.
There's a lot of human in there.
That's right.
That's right.
All right. So we will see you next week, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, play something so I can reach over and hit the button. Oh, okay. Hopefully I hit the right button. Oh, wait a minute. Oh yeah, take your fifths. So I just go to still.